Good morning. Today's class is about nerve sheath tumors, and then the second half of the class I'll be talking about the pathology of eye. So previous class we had dealt with the CNS tumors, and if you remember the classification, the second half was on the peripheral nerve sheath tumors. So I'm going to be talking about those tumors, and that will finish up CNS. And the second half will be dealing about the pathology of eye, where I will be telling about the common inflammatory processes as well as of the tumors of the eye. So moving on to the nerve sheath tumors. So nerve sheath tumors are nothing but the tumors of the peripheral nerves, and most commonly they are benign, and the most common entities in them include the schwannoma, which is also referred to as a neurolemoma, and neurofibroma. So both of them arise from the Schwann cells, but neurofibroma, as the name suggests, they also have a lot of fibrous or collagenous material. So coming to the schwannomas or the neurolemomas, so they can arise from the cranial or spinal nerve roots, and there are two types based on the based on the location. One is the acoustic schwannoma or the acoustic neuroma, which is an intracranial schwannoma located within the internal auditory canal, originating from the vestibular portion of the acoustic nerve. That is what refers to as the acoustic schwannoma. And then we have the intraspinal schwannoma, which are found as intradural tumors in the thoracic regions. Okay. So this is based on the location, the classification of schwannomas. So now how does a schwannoma look grossly and microscopically? Grossly, it is an encapsulated. It's very important. It is an encapsulated, which means it has a covering on top of it. It is solid and sometimes cystic, and this tumor arises that arises produces eccentric enlargement of the nerve root from where it arises. So basically just compresses the nerve, but there is no invasion into the nerve. So it is well circumscribed encapsulated mass, and just eccentrically grows and compresses on the nerve roots. So when you see the microscopy, what we see is there are fibrocellular bundles which form whorled patterns. Okay, so these nerve fibers, they typically form whorled pattern, and there are two areas which are characteristically noted. One is the antennae A areas and antennae B areas. So these antennae A areas are nothing but dense of compact cellularity areas, and the loosely acellular areas are what is called as the antennae B areas. And in antennae A areas, what we will see is palisaded nuclei. Okay, so the cells are arranged just on one on top of the other, which gives it like a palisaded appearance, and these are what are referred to as the Verroque bodies. And outside these pattern, outside the solid encapsulation, you will see the nerve fibers are usually found stretched over the capsule, but they are not seen within the tumor. Okay, so typical microscopic picture, what you need to remember is there are fibrocellular bundles which can be seen in whorled pattern. There will be antennae A areas, which is hypercellular areas, and antennae B areas, which are the loose areas, and the palisaded nuclei, which we see in antennae A areas, which is referred to as the Verroque bodies. Okay, and also degenerative changes can be seen, which contains hemosiderin and lipid-laden macrophages, and if you run an IHC on it, the Schwann cells correctly express an S100 protein. This is a typical gross and microscopic picture of schwannomas. Very important theoretically, and even in practicals we have a slide on it, and very frequently asked question. So you have to, no way to omit this question. This is a typical histological picture where we can see all this more bluish areas, the dense purplish area. These are cellular areas which are nothing but the antennae A areas. Okay, and the lighter pink ones, these ones which are loosely acellular areas, which are called as the antennae B areas. And in this antennae areas, we can see that the nuclei are arranged one on top of the other like a palisading, and this is what is referred to as the Verroque bodies. So all these dark blue areas are the dark bluish to pinkish areas are the antennae A, and the acellular, these areas are the antennae B areas. So next move on to the neurofibromas. So neurofibroma can be singular, it can be one single isolated mass, or it can be multiple, like throughout the body you can have multiple swelling, and that is what is seen in the von Reckling-Hassen's disease, which is also called as the neurofibromatosis. So as I mentioned, it can be a solitary fusiform cutaneous tumor, or more often they are multiple associated with the von Reckling-Hassen's disease. So von Reckling-Hassen's disease has a triad of features. It includes multiple cutaneous neurofibromas. There can be numerous pigmented skin lesions which are called as the café-au-lait spots. Okay, so brownish pigmented skin lesions can be seen throughout the body, and third is a pigmented iris hematomas. So these three form the typical triad of a von Reckling-Hassen's disease or neurofibromatosis. So neurofibromatosis type 1 is a genetic disorder with mutation of chromosome 17, whereas type 2 has a mutation in the chromosome 22. Now, how does it look? The gross and microscopy is gross. It is an unencapsulated tumor. So remember, the schwannomas are very encapsulated, and this is a unencapsulated tumor, and it forms a fusiform enlargement of the nerve fibers. And in neurofibromatosis, in von Recklinghausen, is characterized by numerous nodules of varying sizes. Involving the small cutaneous nerves and the visceral branches of sympathetic nerves. So there will be many in number. And neurofibromatosis may involve a group of nerves and may produce multiple oval irregular swellings. So irregular swellings along the length of the nerve, and that is what is called as plexiform neurofibroma. So that the grossly there can be three variants, a solitary one, or as in seen von Recklinghausen's disease, multiple, or a plexiform neurofibroma where they have involve a group of nerves and they arise as irregular swellings. Microscopically, what we see is composed of bundles and interlacing fascicles of delicate and elongate spindle-shaped cells having wavy nuclei. Okay, so spindle-shaped cells with wavy nuclei, and these are nothing but the nerve fibers, which will be bundles. We see as bundles and interlacing fascicles, and they are separated by the loose collagen or the mucoid material. Okay, and as a name, neural fibromas. Okay, so the two variants are there. One is a neural thing and one is the fibral part. Okay, so the neural things will have again a wavy cells with a wavy nuclei, and fibroma will have the typical little more plump spindle shaped cells, and amongst these areas we will find this loose collagen or mucoid material. And if you run an IHC on this, if they are positive for the epithelial membrane antigen. So this is a pictorial representation where you can see the little more plump cells are the fibroblasts, and the more thinner ones with the wavy nuclei are the nerve fibers. So you'll have fibroblasts, nerve fiber, in between they'll have a loose collagen or myxoid matrix. Okay, so this is a histology picture. So typically it gives us a shredded carrot appearance. So that is what they call, because of the nerve fibers, the fibroblasts, and also the myxoid background in the myxoid material in the background. So this is again a very important question asked, difference between schwannoma and fibroma. Okay, it can be asked individually or it can be asked as a classification. So location, schwannoma is most commonly seen in the cerebral pontine angle involving the eighth nerve, and neurofibroma generally seen in the dermis and along a nerve trunk. Number, schwannoma solitary, these are multiple as seen in neurofibromatosis. And genetics, very rarely it can be associated type 2 neurofibromatosis involving the chromosome 22, and neurofibromas are most commonly seen with the neurofibromatosis type 1 involving the chromosome 17. And gross, it is firm and encapsulated. Here it is soft, well demarcated but not encapsulated, and cut surface it is tan and translucent, and here it is mucoid and translucent. Microscopy in schwannoma, there will be three areas, the antennae A areas, antennae B areas. Antennae A is the compact areas, antennae B are the loose hypocellular areas, and the presence of palisading tumor cells, which are referred to as the Verroque bodies. And in neurofibroma, there will be dense collagen fibers with nerve fibers and abundant extracellular mucoid material. Infiltrations, it is encapsulated, it generally does not invade the underlying nerve tubers. This may infiltrate the peripheral nerves, neurofibroma. And IHC, if you've done, schwannoma is S100 positive, whereas neurofibroma is EMA positive. And behavior, most often schwannomas are benign, whereas neurofibromas may turn malignant. So again, a very important slide which summarizes the finding of neurofibroma and schwannoma, and also differentiates also tells us about the differences between the both. So that finishes schwannoma and neurofibroma. Let's go on to the next tumor, which is MPNST, which is nothing but the malignant peripheral nerve sheath tumor. So from the benign entity, we're moving to the malignant entity. And this is MPNST is a poorly differentiated spindle cell sarcoma of the peripheral nerves, most commonly seen in adults. So tumor, grossly, if you see it as an unencapsulated fusiform enlargement of the nerve. And in microscopy, it has general features of tumor cells resembling that of fibrosarcoma. Basically, just like how we see the neurofibroma and everything, all those cells will be seen, but there's typically they are very anaplastic, and along with that, of the features of malignancy like TIP, we'll see frequent mitosis and lot areas of necrosis will be there. And there is a variant in MPNST called as a Triton tumor, where MPNST also has areas of poorly differentiated rhabdomyosarcoma, that is abdominal malignancy of the skeletal muscle fibers, so rhabdomyosarcoma. And also you will see cartilage and bone because of this various elements seen in the MPNST. It is also referred to as it's a variant, and it's called as a Triton tumor. So important in the peripheral nerve sheath tumors will be schwannoma and neurofibroma, which you cannot avoid reading. You have to, which is very important questions. So schwannoma, neurofibroma with the difference in both. So that finishes CNS, and now we are moving on to the next topic, that is eye. Okay. So now when we take eye, I'll just talk in brief about the anatomy and physiology, and then we will go about the very common inflammatory disorders which are seen in the eye, and lastly I'll be talking about the tumors of the eye. Coming to the anatomy, so this is the globe of the eye. This is a cut section. So here you can see the outer, so here we will generally have the eyelids which protect the eye, and then covering the outer, there's a thin membrane called as the conjunctiva, which has the two parts, the scleral and the palpebral conjunctiva, and scleral and the bulbar conjunctiva. And then underneath the sclera or conjunctiva we have, this is the cornea which covers the lens, and in the periphery, the whitish area, this is what is the sclera. Okay, and there are three layers of the eye. The innermost layer which we see is a retina, which has the blood vessels, which has the nerves, and this retina has the rods and cones which are helpful in the vision. So this is a neurosensory layer, which is the retina, and then upper layer which we see is a choroid, which has a blood vessels which supplies the various parts of the eye. This is the choroid, is a vascular layer, and the outermost layer is the sclera, which is the protective layer. Okay, and the sclera in the center forms the cornea which overlies the lens. So the from outermost to inner means sclera, choroid and retina. And here we can see in the just brushing through the anatomy, you will learn in detail in your ophthalmology classes, but just to know what it, and I'm sure you have read it in anatomy too, but just to summarize, so these are the three layers, and then we have the chambers, two chambers in front of the lens. You have the anterior chamber and the posterior chamber, and the lens, this is the iris, and the aperture in the center, which is referred to as the pupil. Okay, so that just to for what is it, brushing through your anatomy of eye. Now coming to the eyelid. So eyelid, you know, it is a skin layer on top of the eye, and it is made up of non-keratinized, and the lining epithelium is made up of a non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. The skin appendages has two types of glands, one sebaceous glands, which are referred to as the glands of Zeiss and Meibomian glands, and then there are the apocrine glands, which are called as the glands of Moll. Now why are these glands, if it is important to remember, is because if there is an infection of these glands, it results in certain pathologies, and which are named pathologies which need to be remembered, and very common. They're very common and can be easily treated. So that is why the sebaceous glands are called as the glands of Zeiss and Meibomian glands, and the apocrine glands are called as the glands of Moll. Now this conjunctiva, it's lined by the mucous membrane, which contains, it's a specialized mucous membrane which covers the whole of the globe and eyelids, and it is made up of a stratified cuboidal epithelium with goblet cells, with Langerhans cells and melanocytes. This is just a picture normal, which is a stratified cuboidal epithelium seen in the conjunctiva. And retina, the innermost layer, as I've already mentioned, it is a neurosensory, and it contains a neurosensory part of the eye, and it consists of rods and cones, and it performs a major function in the vision. Okay. Now coming to the pathology, so we are starting with the inflammatory conditions. And first we'll start with the eyelid pathologies. Okay, inflammatory conditions of the eyelid. So first thing which you're going to see is what is called as the stye. Stye is nothing but the acute suppurative. Suppurative means it is more of a pus kind of material will be seen. So acute suppurative inflammation of the sebaceous glands, the glands of Z's. Okay, and it is of two types, external and internal, whether it is located outside the eyelid or inside the eyelid based on the location. Okay, so this is the first pathology, stye. Now next we have the chalazion, which is nothing but the chronic inflammation of the meibomian glands. Okay, now any kind of thing, any of this gets infected, the most common pathogenesis is the draining of the glands. Okay, the draining of this sebaceous and upper glands gets blocked, and as a result there is stasis, and because of the collection causes infections. Okay, it causes inflammation and destruction. So the stasis or the blockage of the duct is the most important pathogenesis for these lesions. Now what do you see in chalazion is first a tender swelling will be noted, and later it becomes non-tender like an oval mass which is present in the eyelid. And when you excise the mass and see it under the microscope, what you will typically see is presence of this lipogranulomas. Okay, so here this is a low power view of the lipogranuloma, where here you will see lipid or the adipocyte material can be seen, and surrounding that there can be a granuloma. So you know granuloma means what all it will have? It will have in layers. Okay, may or may not be necrosis, but then you will see series of lymphocytes, histiocytes, and then giant cells. So this is a high power view where we can see this is the fat cells, the lipids, and the granuloma with predominantly with lymphocytes and histiocytes and the giant cells. All these are the giant cells. Then conjunctivitis. So whatever topics I'm taking for now, it's like for desirable to know types. Not it may be asked in Viva, but not very frequently asked in the exams. So it's but at least you should know, because all this you will be dealing in detail in your ophthalmology classes next year. But just you should have an idea of what is happening, what are the various pathologies you should know in the eye. So we have finished about the eyelid pathologies. Now coming to conjunctivitis. So conjunctivitis, it can cause itis. So it is an inflammation of the conjunctiva. Okay. So etiology, it can be because of physical agents can be there, chemical agents, infective, which can include bacterial, viral and fungi, or it can be allergic, or they can be an autoimmune conditions causing keratoconjunctivitis, Sicca, which also causes a dry eye, or it can also be seen conditions like sarcoidosis or granulomatous conjunctivitis. So whatever be the type of conjunctivitis, the three stages which can be seen is of acute stage, where there is corneal edema, there's acute inflammatory cell infiltration, then there's a subacute stage, and it goes in for the chronic stage, where there is a proliferation of the blood vessels along with the inflammations, okay, and the chronic inflammatory cells like the lymphocytes and plasma cells, and this is what is referred to as the Panus formation. So these are the three stages which are seen in conjunctivitis. Now moving on to the next pathology, which is again very commonly, which is very important, of course, but you will be reading more in detail in next year, which is called as the trachoma. Okay, so trachoma is a chronic contagious conjunctivitis caused by Chlamydia trachomatis. Okay, and it is virtually always bilateral. It involves the upper half of the conjunctiva, and this is the most common cause of blindness in the world, especially prevalent in Asia, Middle East, and parts of Africa. Okay, so it's just like it comes as a conjunctivitis, and you can go in for a blindness. So it has to be detected earlier and treated earlier, and complete treatment is available. So it is one of the cause of preventable blindness. Okay. So that is trachoma, and it has three stages: follicular stage, papillary stage, and cicatrization stage. I'm not going to get in detail about the stages. Now other pathologies which you can see in the eye is the retinopathies. Okay, so both the chronic conditions like diabetes and hypertension can cause damage to the retina. So diabetic retinopathy and hypertensive retinopathy are very commonly seen. So in the hypertensive retinopathy there are two types. You know, hypertension, it's benign hypertension, malignant hypertension. What happens in the benign hypertension of the retina is it causes thickened arteriolar changes or it causes arteriosclerosis. In malignant hypertension you can see this damage to the choroidal blood vessels. There can be microinfarcts and retinal detachments. Okay, so So these are the features which you see in the case of hypertension in retina. And if a patient is diabetic, what happens in long term to the retina is the two phases. One is a pre-proliferative changes in due to diabetes mellitus, and proliferative. In pre-proliferative, there is thickening of blood vessels. There can be microaneurysms, macular edema, and hemorrhagic exudates. So proliferative, there can be neovascularization or neovascular membrane formation. I am not dealing in detail because these are more important ophthalmologies in your third year which you will read. But just as an introduction to your classes, introduction to your eye pathology, I'm just telling you all these conditions. Okay. So now coming to the important thing. So till now we had seen the inflammations. Now we are going to the most important topic in the eye, which is the tumor and tumor-like conditions of the eye and adnexal structures. So before getting into the tumor chapter, let's just have an overview of what are the various tumors can be seen, the benign and the malignant. So okay, in the eyelid, what you can see is a squamous cell papilloma, basal cell papilloma, sebaceous adenoma, nevi. And the malignant lesions of the eyelid include basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, sebaceous adenocarcinoma, malignant melanoma. Okay, so this is an extensive list of all the tumors which can occur in the eye. Okay, so I'm just narrating to you what all other various tumors of the eye. In the conjunctiva and cornea, benign, it includes squamous cell papilloma, pseudoepitheliomatous hyperplasia, nevi, hemangioma. Malignant, it includes squamous cell carcinoma, mucoepidermoid carcinoma, and malignant melanoma. In the lacrimal glands, benign pleomorphic adenoma, malignant carcinoma, ex-pleomorphic adenoma. In the orbit, you can have glioma, inflammatory pseudotumor, meningioma. And malignant, it is malignant glioma, lymphoma, rhabdomyosarcoma. And intraocular, you can have nevi and neurofibroma. And malignant retinoblastoma and malignant melanoma. So this is a classification of the various tumors of the eye. Now coming to the very important topic, retinoblastoma, very frequently asked, short question and a viva question. Okay, so in today's class, if you have to remember three things, I will say in from the nerves, you have to know schwannoma and neurofibroma, and in the eye, you have to know about retinoblastoma. So retinoblastoma is the most common intraocular tumor of the childhood, and mutations is seen in the retinoblastoma gene in the 13th chromosome. Okay, 60% of the cases are sporadic, whereas 40% are inherited. So, one second. Yeah. So grossly, retinoblastoma, it is seen as a white retrolental tumor, and it can be seen as an exophytic or as an endophytic growth. In microscopy, you will see typically homogeneous basophilic tumor cells with small round cells with areas of necrosis and calcification. So there is a group of tumors which are called small blue round cell tumors, and in that one of the tumor which fits into that category is called as a retinoblastoma, because if you see in low power, they just occur as small blue round cells. Okay, but then when you go into high power, you will see the characteristic pattern, and then you can identify it with the history. And also because it's a tumor, high-grade tumor, it has areas of necrosis and calcification. So also retinoblastoma, in high power you will see these small round cells. They will have scanty cytoplasm, round to oval nuclei with finely granular nucleochromatin. And typically you will see two kinds of rosettes called as the flexner ventosiner rosettes and Homerite rosettes. So now this flexner ventosiner rosettes consists of circle of cells limited internally by a continuous membrane. So it looks like as if it's around a central empty lumina, and that is what is seen in flexner ventosiner rosettes. Whereas in Homerite rosettes there will be multi-layered circle of nuclei surrounding eosinophilic fibrillar material. So here in the center you will have eosinophilic fibrillar material, so it's called as a Homerite rosette. And if it is like a continuous membrane with it, it looks like an empty lumina inside, and those are what are called as flexner ventosiner rosettes. So I had already discussed about rosettes to you in my previous class when I was discussing about neuroblastoma and everything. So ependymoma, all this you will have different tumor cells around central and either a fibrillar material or a vessel or an empty lumina. So this rosette means like a flower kind of arrangement. So in retinoblastoma you will see the two rosettes which are nothing but the flexner ventosiner rosettes and the Homerite rosettes. So this is a retrolateral mass. Here you can see this is a whitish layer, and on cut surface you can see this is a lens, and behind us you see such a big tumor, okay, completely occupying the whole vitreous cavity. You can see such a big tumor. And this is a low power view where we can see all these other small blue round cells arranged in sheets, and these are the calcifications. And in high power you can see this Flexner-Vinstiner rosettes, okay, where you can see tumor cells around the central empty areas. So these two are the very typical rosettes. So again, this is a Flexner-Vinstiner rosette where you can see tumor cells arranged in arranged in lumina, okay. So that's just about the Flexner-Vinstiner rosettes. So in retinoblastoma, you need to know what's the gross picture, what's the microscopic picture. Also, and then next topic which we are going to see is about the malignant melanoma. Okay, so malignant melanoma, it's the most common primary intraocular tumor, and it may arise from the melanocytes in any part of the eye, most common site being the choroid. And they grossly, it is mushroom shaped tumors, and they have different patterns, like they can have a nodular or diffuse pattern, and generally if they penetrate the uveal tract, they have a very poor prognosis. And based on the type of cells, it can have a spindled variant, epithelioid variant, mixed variant, which is similar to the tumors that you see in the skin. So here you can see, this is the eye, and here you can see the big tumor which is present, malignant melanoma, and with the typical melanin pigment in them. These are the, so based on the cell type, it can be spindled or epithelioid type. Okay, so yes, so that finishes my class. What I really want you to learn from today's classes, as I told before, you must know in the nerve sheath tumors, you must know about the schwannomas and the neuromas and how to identify the differentiation between them. And in the eye, you must know just a brief understanding about the various inflammations of the eyelids and of the conjunctivitis, and you must classification of the various tumors of the eye, and very importantly know about the retinoblastoma. How is this pathogenesis, where I told you about the two types of inheritance. One is where is sporadic, and one is where is inherited and involving the retinoblastoma gene involving the 13th chromosome, and how the idea about the double hit hypothesis, which is seen in the sporadic cases where there is a mutation doubly hit, the patient develops, whereas in already an inherited form, because one of the parent is already having the mutated gene, a single mutation will be sufficient to cause the thing. So the pathogenesis of retinoblastoma, the gross and the microscopy, and also you should know about the rosettes, different types of rosettes, and to conclude, finishing about the malignant melanoma. Thank you.